So we all know that Israel Adesanya recently lost to Joe Pyfer at UFC Seattle. And there are a lot of conversations that are being had about what is going on with Izzy. And I've went back and I watched the Joe Pyfer fight again. I've watched the DDP fight again, the Mava fight, and I've went back and watched some of these Adesanya fights throughout this stretch that he has had that we'll call it the rough stretch. And I believe that I have figured out really what is going on with Adesanya. So that is what we are going to be talking about in today's video, because I do not think that Izzy is washed. I don't think he's washed. Is he the same fighter that he was a few years ago? No, I don't think so. I think the reflexes, the speed, the fight IQ, which we're going to discuss, I think that there have clearly been declines in his game to a degree, which is natural because he's been fighting for many, many years, an extensive kickboxing career. He's been in the UFC for a while now, and that is going to happen in due time. Like, that is just the reality of the fight game. But there's a lot of conversations out there saying, Izzy doesn't have it anymore. He's lost his step, all of these things, which is partially true. But I feel like that's kind of a lazy assessment. So without further ado, man, let's rock and roll right into this thing, because Adesanya, post-fight UFC Seattle, says, I am not effing leaving. So he's not going anywhere. So there was this whole kind of narrative coming into UFC Seattle to where I was even kind of, in my head going, man, if he loses to Joe Pyfer, like a guy that at the time was ranked 14, 15, right? Adesanya in the top 5. He's already dropped a couple in a row. Granted, he's been fighting some of the best in the world. But you go out here and lose to Joe Pyfer, a guy I feel that even in his prime, Israel Adesanya should run circles around. Even at this point in his career, I feel like Izzy has the style and capabilities to still beat a dangerous guy like Joe Pyfer, which it turns out Pyfer was able to get the better of him. Joe Pyfer was able to fight a more disciplined game than Adesanya. So it's clear that Izzy, to me, still has the fire. He's still a guy that wants to go in there, have fun, and compete. But I feel like we are seeing some things that are very concerning from Izzy that, in a sense, are costing him in all of these fights. Now, I'm not saying that he would win all of these fights, but he has not done himself any favors by the uncharacteristic mistakes that he has made in a lot of these fights. That is something we were not seeing from him during his championship run, and especially earlier in his career. And this is what he says on social media. I know it's hard on my people seeing me fall. I promise you it's harder on me regardless. We respawn and go again. One of the things about Izzy, to me, that has always made him such a special fighter is obviously his fighting style, the way he moves, what he's accomplished in the sport. We could sit up here all day long and talk about those things, but I really admire the mindset of Adesanya, man. This is a guy, to me, that has a bulletproof mindset, that has no problem facing adversity, dealing with things, and finding a way to come back better than ever, or find a way to not sit around and mope about it, and come back and find a way to make it right. Find a way to fix whatever is going wrong. Now, you could say, well, over his past few fights, it's constantly been something, but yet it's been something different in all of those fights, which, like I said, we are going to discuss. But the fact that this dude got beat by Alex Pereira multiple times and comes back is what's looking like an absolute disaster in the second MMA fight, walks him into a trap up along the fence and knocks him out. That, to me, is a dude that has no problem with the mindset when it comes to the fight game. And I feel like it's so weird, man. Adesanya still has it, in my opinion. He still has it. He has it up here with the mindset. He has it with the motivation because, again, he's a guy that's he's a legend of the game, right? Legacy's intact. He's been there, done that. And people are like, man, he's going down the Tony Ferguson route. This is in no way, shape, or form the same thing as the Tony Ferguson route, man. Adesanya is in there against some of the best fighters in the world, some of the best upcoming fighters in the middleweight division. And when we talk about washed, what does washed really mean? Well, to me, it means you're just a complete shell of yourself, right? You're just, the durability is completely gone. You have everything, you just literally look like almost a complete corpse and a shell of yourself. And is that what we see from Izzy out there? No. Absolutely not. And if that's what you think, I encourage you to go back and watch some of these fights, especially early on, man. Like, he clearly still has some zip. He still has something special about him. And he still has the skills. And it's the weirdest thing because this is not a fighter being washed and they're dropping some eggs here. That's what makes this so unique to me. And then when you talk about what has happened recently, he has not won a fight since April of 2023. How crazy is that, man? He was out there outstriking Alex Pineda in the first fight, then gets caught, come from behind victory by Pineda. The star in MMA is born, which I think Pineda would have been a massive star anyway, but you get my point. That was some of the most excited moments that I have had building up to a UFC fight, knowing that I had watched these guys before the UFC, the story that they had, and then coming to the UFC. I mean, the saga is insane, man. One of the greatest rivalries, if not the greatest overall, considering that it has been multiple fights throughout their careers together, between Poatan and Adesanya. The kickboxing storyline, they're high-level strikers, all those things. Pineda with the come-from-behind victory after Izzy looked really good in the fight, loses to Poatan, or beats Poatan in the rematch, and then has not won a fight since then. What if I told you that Adesanya would beat Poatan in the MMA rematch and not win again? Because that is a crazy reality that Izzy's being faced with here, man. That is a crazy reality that he is being faced with because he has dropped 4 in a row since winning the Poatan rematch. Losing to Strickland, losing to DDP, losing to Nasruddin Imavov, losing to Joe Pyfer. Now, the Strickland, DDP, and Imavov losses, losing to Poatan Pineda, one of the greatest strikers of all time, one of the most ferocious finishers we've ever seen. So it's like, okay, you lose to him the first time, but I feel like it's pretty safe to say that Poatan, in my opinion, was really compromising himself by being at middleweight. But again, got fast-tracked, the rivalry with Izzy, that helped absolutely explode him as a superstar. Losing to Sean Strickland's one of the best strikers in the UFC. Got the best jab, in my opinion. A very difficult stylistic matchup. One of the best in the world. We saw what he just did to Fluffy. He also has a win over Nasruddin Imavov. Dricus du Plessis. Outside of getting dominated and ragdolled around by Chimaev, whose grappling is just on a different planet than everybody else. Okay, he's looked great. He's been beating basically everybody else, right? Nasruddin Imavov. Outside of losing to Strickland and dropping a few and having some of these questionable moments early in his career, this dude is showing that he literally should be fighting for the title. If Strickland and Khamzat didn't have this crazy beef and there wasn't this massive buildup for that fight that's going to make it a huge fight, Imavov is fighting for the belt, man. Like, he is a super high-level striker. And then losing to Joe Pyfer, I feel like Joe Pyfer, honestly, as dangerous as he is, I don't think that he's better than Strickland. I don't think he's better than DDP, and I certainly don't think he's better than Nasruddin Imavov. And I don't think he's obviously better than Poatan. So you could say, he's kind of went down the totem pole from fighting these really high-level guys till now he's losing to a dude that isn't necessarily as high-level, but Joe Pyfer's still very dangerous. But it was the fact of how that fight played out with Joe Pyfer, which we're going to get to in just a second, because the moral of the story of all of this is Izzy has looked good until he hasn't in this rough stretch. It's not like Izzy's going out here and from the opening bell where the referee says go, Adesanya is just a complete shell of himself. The speed is gone. The reaction time is completely to shit. He has no power. It just literally looks like a ghost of himself. Is that what we are seeing? I am asking you. No, I don't think that that's what we are seeing. I don't think it's what we're seeing. Is he as speedy? No, but we're going to talk about the style because I think that there's been some adjustments to his style and physically to his frame that have kind of hindered him a little bit. But I don't believe that Adesanya is washed, man. Like, people are saying this guy is washed and he should be done, and I don't agree. I don't agree whatsoever because he has looked good until he hasn't. And if you are in there against the best fighters in the world and you are washed, in my opinion, you are going to have next to no moments of success. You are going to get blown out of the water. And I hate to do this, but think about Tony Ferguson. Think about Anderson Silva. Some of these guys, when they got towards the end and were like, okay, you're hanging around too long. Were they fighting some of the best guys in the world? Ferguson, towards the end there, was not really fighting some of the best guys in the world, in my opinion. He was losing. Right, so to me, this is different with Adesanya, right? People are bringing up those comparisons, and I don't necessarily agree because, again, the Poatan fight, winning this fight until he gets caught later in the fight. Goes out here. It wasn't looking good. Sets a trap. Is able to knock out Poatan Pineda. Gets the belt back, and it feels like there was this giant elephant lifted off of Izzy's chest where he's like, man, I finally accomplished this, right? Something that botched, right? He was just, that this was just keeping Izzy up at night, man. This was haunting him. This is his kryptonite. Everyone's saying he can't beat this guy. Well, a lot of people were, right? He can't beat this dude. Poaton's got his number, right? Sometimes there's just that fighter in your career that has your number. But if you had watched those kickboxing fights, you had seen that the one, I thought it was a robbery, and I thought Adesanya won. It was close either way. And the other one, he was winning, and then Poatan was able to clip him. And that was literally the first fight, basically kind of in reverse in the second fight, to where Pineda was winning early, and then Adesanya was able to find the knockout shot. So they kind of reversed their roles in this fight. But since that win, was a disaster against Sean Strickland. We know that there were some things happening with Izzy leading up to the fight, but hindsight is, the reality is Sean Strickland is kind of a nightmare matchup for Adesanya, and I think we all realize that by now. Sean Strickland, people get caught up in the noise, the character, all the things that Strickland is saying, to where you almost forget, wait a second, whoa. This dude is literally one of the most high-level and difficult strikers to deal with that we have ever seen in the UFC. Like, I don't give a damn what anybody says. Sean Strickland is one of the most high-level and difficult puzzles to deal with on the feet that we have ever seen in the UFC, man. His defense is so elite. He knows how to be in that, not right up here to where you're in this super, in the pocket boxing range, not a kicking range, but right in that uncomfortable mid-range just from all these rounds that he spars, to where he has just got the most uncomfortable range dialed down to keep guys right at the end of his shots to be super annoying. Batter the front kicks to the midsection. He's very straight up in the air to check the leg kicks, right? And we see how kind of high IQ he is on the feet. And I know we jab and teep. But the reality is we criticize that when he's losing, but when he wins, like against Fluffy, that's basically what he did. Jabbed and teeped, threw a knee to the body, was able to drop him, and then let some nice combinations go along the fence. So losing to Strickland, this is a guy that beat Imavov. Now, in a rematch, I think that'd be very interesting between Strickland and Imavov. But the bottom line is Strickland is a high-level striker. He's not some bum that beat Adesanya, man. And I don't know that in a rematch it's any better for Izzy, by the way, because given the stylistic matchup of how Strickland can take away the range, get to the inside, get to the boxing, he's a difficult guy to deal with. Okay, so off night, I don't necessarily look at it that way. I think Sean Strickland would have beaten Adesanya from what we've seen stylistically, no matter what. But say what you will. Comes out here against Dricus du Plessis. This is one of the better versions of Izzy that I feel like we have seen. However, we saw some problems that we're going to get to in just a second, where I'm going to kind of go through a list of the things that I think is going wrong with Izzy. Was he not having a lot of moments in this fight? Was he not winning this fight until he got submitted? I thought he was winning this fight. He was outstriking DDP on the feet, landing nasty shots. His boxing looked probably the best it has of his entire career. Throwing the sticky jab, throwing the right hand behind it, ripping shots to the body, digging with kicks to the body, attacking the legs, right? And we've seen Dricus du Plessis. If you go back and watch that fight, I think that you'll put some more respect on DDP striking, because I know we say it, Looney Tune-ish, right? Like he's on roller skates and, flying piano, flying violin, whatever you want to say. He's got the stumble and bumble, do-do-do-do, break out the cymbals kind of style. But Dricus du Plessis got some fast kicks, man. He's got some fast kicks, and he's actually a very, very good striker. I feel like we all know that by now, but he's a difficult guy to deal with. Styles stumbled and bumbled his way to beating Adesanya after Izzy was having a lot of moments. Again, moments. Nasruddin Imavov had a very good first round, got caught with that uppercut in the first round, I believe, right? But outside of that, he was managing the range well, getting the jab going, attacking the lead leg, ripping some kicks to the body, moving around well, switching stances. He looked good. And then Nasruddin Imavov was able to close the gap after, there was an eye poke. Should have Adesanya have took a little bit longer. Sure, you could say that. But he switched stances at a bad moment, and Imavov took advantage of it. And Imavov is very well coached, man. Nicholas Ott, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated and one of the best coaches in the game. And on social media, he was talking about how Adesanya with the stance switches, and he has these tendencies. They knew Adesanya's game, man. They knew his game, and Nasruddin Imavov he has got pro boxer hand speed. Now, I'm not saying that he's like a pro boxer, because we know MMA and traditional boxing, straight boxing is different, but he's got a boxing background. His striking is elite, man. Elite movement, elite speed. Tough matchup for Adesanya, given how good his boxing is and the boxing deficiencies that we see from Izzy, especially on the defensive side. And Joe Pyfer, again, he's winning this fight. He has a great first round, sticking and moving. Butchering the lead leg of Joe Pyfer, tagging him up, getting the hands going a little bit, ripping some kicks to the body, sticking and moving, fighting a good methodical game plan. Exactly how I would think that he would fight Joe Pyfer. Butcher the lead leg, make him more of a sitting duck. Pyfer will look to grapple, defend the takedowns. He's going to start to wear down. He's going to be catching fresh air or whiffing, whatever Adesanya said. I'm going to make him, catch fresh air or whatever. He wanted to make him miss. You know, as he is with his words, man. He knows how to draw you in and build the thing up, right? And he was saying, I want him to whiff and hit fresh air. And Pyfer was doing that for the most part in the first round. And I thought the game plan was going to be patience, butcher the lead leg, make him more of a sitting duck. Pyfer's gas tank will wear, which I think it definitely would have. We were seeing him. I thought Pyfer was starting to slow down in moments, man. He was starting to breathe kind of heavy. Filling up the blood into the muscles. I almost said lactic acid, but you get what I'm saying. That would slow him down. For a guy that's a bigger dude from the middleweight division, carrying around all that muscle, that's really explosive. We know these fighters that are super explosive like that, one of the weaknesses is usually the cardio, the gas tank, right? And then Adesanya just comes out in the second round, and I feel like, what I was saying before is, this reminds me of when you're just tagging somebody up, you feel like you got them right where you want them. You see them slowing down. You see the output. You see the body language. They're backing up. They're retreating. You're starting to find your timing. You're starting to hit that flow state. And you're like, hey, I got you, man. I got you. I'm going to get into the pocket. I'm going to, bait you into something. I'm going to land that counter shot. And I feel like Adesanya started brawling because he thought that he had Joe Pyfer at that point that I thought Joe Pyfer would be at a little later in the fight. But it turns out Joe Pyfer still had some left in the tank, and Adesanya got too overly aggressive, started brawling, and got himself in trouble. So this is what I think is going on with Adesanya. I do think that his reaction time and defense has taken a little bit of a hit. Obviously, that's natural. You get later in your career. You've had how many fights he's had, man? I mean, all the extensive kickboxing background in MMA. And we see with his defense, the boxing defense has always been a weakness, right? Kind of pulls away, tall man defense. He's always had usually a very significant reach advantage on a lot of his opposition. So he just kind of extends his arms, switches stances to get away. But his fundamental boxing defense, like slipping and, ripping and all these kinds of things in the pocket, has always been a weakness of his game. And I feel like part of the puzzle has been solved. Guys understand that if you can crowd the space, pressure Adesanya, get into that boxing range, you can cause him some problems. Right? That's what we saw Strickland do. It's what we saw Imavov do. It's what we saw Joe Pyfer kind of do. And when you're a fighter that had a crazy championship reign, like I said, man, enjoy these guys while they're at the top, like Adesanya, Volkanovski, Usman. These guys were defending their belts all the time. Right? It felt like they were defending their belt like every other month. They were super active. But I feel like what comes with that is so much film out there on you, and people are going to start to break down your game because when you're at the top for so long, these fighters on the come up are preparing to one day fight you. And when they get their opportunity, they have you almost broken down to a T. And Adesanya is a guy that he's made some adjustments, but he hasn't really evolved his game enough, in my opinion. He hasn't really evolved his game enough, right? And people kind of understand his tricks, his moves, his combinations, and they understand how to get after him. And I feel like something that maybe doesn't get talked about enough is I feel like Adesanya, to me at least, it looks like he's added on some muscle and some size over the past few years, which I understand. You get a little bit older, you're gonna fill out a little bit more, all those kinds of things. But to me, that has kind of sacrificed the cardio in a sense, where we've seen Adesanya, a guy that used to kind of move and groove, had no problem outpointing somebody for 25 minutes, to where when he gets into the third round or, second round after all this output and kind of getting into these brawling modes where he's not necessarily sticking and moving like he was back in the day, he starts to fatigue himself a little bit. And I feel like with some of the added on size, right, when Adesanya was fighting Paulo Costa, right, where he had that little titty going on, right, Adesanya was this slim build guy where it was all about speed, to where we saw this with McGregor, where not necessarily the same thing, but Conor added on the size, lifting and bulking up, and, there's a way to go about it, I feel. But he almost bulked himself up like McGregor, to where he made himself very plotty and methodical and took away that elusiveness, to where you see how Mauricio Rufy is nowadays. That's kind of how McGregor was. McGregor's not like that anymore. He's a plotster with the footwork, moving forward, very stationary, kind of a sitting duck, right? I feel like we've seen a little bit of that with Adesanya in a way. I feel like we have. I don't know if that's being talked about enough, man. I don't know what people are necessarily saying about it, but this is something that I've noticed. In the fight IQ and range management, the range management starts out very good early in the fight in all of those fights for the most part, outside of the Strickland one. And then the fight IQ. Normally, fighters, in my opinion, when you're earlier in your career, maybe you're young, you're like, man, I'm just going to go out here and throw down and be fast and do this and that. And, your durability is on your side, which is definitely another thing, in reaction time and defense is durability. Adesanya is the most vulnerable he's been durability-wise, right? He's got a lot of miles on him. Not a guy that was ever known for taking a ton of damage, but I'm saying now he's a little bit older. We're seeing him get cracked a lot more than we ever had in his career. But the fight IQ to me has been a problem. A guy that kind of fights a little bit ego-driven at moments. You hit him and he's like, I got to get one back on you. You can kind of see the demeanor of Adesanya change at times where he's like, I got to get that one back. Oh, you leg kick me. I got to get you back. Oh, you hit me with a big shot. Watch this. I'm going to land one back. And he starts to fight with a little bit of an ego. And I think that that's something that's gotten him in trouble. And a guy that has come out fighting very well from the outside, following the game plan, sticking to the strategy, then kind of abandons ship and kind of goes rogue, and then it gets him in trouble. And once he's taken down, we have seen on the feet, Adesanya's got really good footwork. He's very elusive. He's a hard guy to get a hold of. But when you can close the gap, get your hands locked, take him down, and put him on his back, he is a very different fighter, right? Against Marvin Vettori, we would see him pop back up. Again, Vettori, really no submission threat, really no ground and pound threat. So you could just pop right back to your feet with no consequence. A guy like DDP, ground and pound threat, submission threat. Doesn't work the same. Guy like Joe Pyfer, ground and pound threat, submission threat. Doesn't work the same. And he's a guy that, yes, he has good takedown defense, but if you could get through the brick wall of the takedown defense, get your hands locked, put him on his back, and get to a dominant position, we have seen that Adesanya really struggles in those spots. And it's not exactly an area that he was put much in his UFC career, but you saw against Vettori when he could do it. And it's like, well, wait a minute. That's why I picked DDP to beat him. Because I'm like, if DDP could get to those positions, he's going to win. And in hindsight, we knew that if Joe Pyfer was going to win, it was probably going to be by a finish and him utilizing the grappling. And that's an area to me that was never patched by Adesanya. To where the division has just kind of gotten better, man. It's moved on. It's evolved. The division has gotten better. If you look around at the talent, a lot of the talent in the middleweight division, man, it's a red-hot division. And I'm not saying, some of the guys that have been around for a while, they still kind of fight the same. But Adesanya, to me, his style, a lot of fighters understand his game now. He's still very effective early, but they understand that with patience, in due time, if you can force Adesanya to kind of swang and bang with you, kind of forget about the game plan a little bit. He gets a little bit careless with the range management, and you can get to him. He's very vulnerable when it comes to the durability these days, and if you fight his ego and pull him into a slugfest, we have seen a guy that didn't used to be like that back in the day when he fought Yoel Romero, when he fought Paulo Costa. He was a guy that had no problem being in a boring fight, picking you apart from range, doing what he did to Cannonier, shutting down your offense, playing great defense, jabbing and leg kicking, ripping kicks to the body, to now almost a guy that ever since he, Pineda, he had to be a lot more aggressive because he realized that he can't just be on the back foot the whole time, having Pineda walk him down. But ever since the Strickland fight, we've seen a guy that's came out a lot more aggressive and gets in these positions where he gets uber aggressive and then finds himself in these spots where he gets caught, where something slips in terms of the strategy. He gets caught by a shot he doesn't see coming. Someone stumbles and bumbles into a takedown. He decides to brawl. It's been these lapses with the fight IQ, which is something that I really never thought that we would talk about with Adesanya in terms of, while I think a lot of the physical tools are still there, he's a guy that is not making good decisions in the octagon. And I feel like a part of that is he's kind of in this, he got the legacy, and he's like, I'm just going to go in there and have fun. Maybe there's that element. And he's out here chasing highlights. We've heard him before. I want highlights. And I think that he thought he was going to make a highlight of Joe Pyfer. Thought he had him in some trouble, which he did. He was battering the lead leg. But I think he went for the finish too soon, man. And that's why I felt like credit to Joe Pyfer. He was calm and composed, made it happen, got the biggest win of his career. And I think Joe Pyfer is a very exciting fighter. But to me, Adesanya is the more talented, sophisticated fighter. And he didn't show it in that fight, and I feel like he fumbled, and Joe Pyfer absolutely took advantage of it. And I think Adesanya is done at the top, though. I don't think that he's washed as a fighter. And I guess you could say, well, if he's done at the top, well, then isn't he washed? No, because I still think he can beat quite a few dudes. I think he can still beat quite a few dudes, which we'll talk about the matchups I'd like to see for him next, possibly. But I don't think he's washed, man. I think he's done at the top, and I think that he's vulnerable. It's the most vulnerable he's been, at least defensively. So this is kind of my assessment on all of it, man. I'd be curious to hear what you all think, but I really don't think Adesanya is washed. I don't. I think he's not necessarily the guy he once was, but I still think that he is still very skilled. He's shown it in all these fights. You don't go out here against some of the best fighters in the world, dangerous guys, and have moments and win rounds if you're washed, in my opinion, and have a lot of them in some sort of trouble. So as far as next fights, this is what we'll end the video with. I know Shara, I think, has a fight coming up with maybe Michelle Pereira. I mean, I think Shara is pretty overrated. I think he's a fun fighter to watch, but very overrated. I think that's a fight that Adesanya can win. Again, we've seen that Shara's creative. He could possibly catch you with something, a very kick-heavy guy. I think that's a winnable fight for Izzy. I think Christian Leroy Duncan, as good as he's looked and as explosive as he is, I think that's a winnable fight for Adesanya, a guy that's going to go out there and strike with him. Two guys that are going to strike. There's no grappling to worry about. Roman Dolidze, basically a moving heavy bag on the feet. A guy that his striking is super predictable, has a sloppy overhand with not a ton of power, and is pretty one-dimensional on the feet. Has a decent ground game. We saw that a little bit against CLD, which I thought was a little bit more impressive than what I expected from Roman in the fight. But we've seen Adesanya's takedown defense is good. And on the feet, I mean, he could do what he did against Joe Pyfer and brawl, and I feel like he could get Roman Dolidze out of there. And then the Jared Cannonier rematch. Right, if the UFC doesn't go in any of these directions, they're trying to, give CLD a guy that's on maybe a win streak or something, trying to build him up the division. And they kind of have been given Shara these favorable stylistic matchups. Adesanya's a striker, Shara's a striker. I think that's a great matchup. I think it's a great matchup. CLD is a possibility. Again, maybe a little dangerous, young, hungry guy. We saw what he did to a guy like Marco Tulio. Right, Roman Dolidze, not good on the feet, does have the grappling threat, but again, his wrestling isn't the best out in space. Adesanya's footwork is good, and then Cannonier's older, and I know Izzy beat him the first time, but I think an older Cannonier is also a winnable fight for Adesanya. I don't know, put it on a numbered event or something on the main card. So this is what I think about Adesanya, man. Let me know if you guys agree, because I really, really don't believe that this guy is washed. I feel like this is one of the weirder stories that we've seen with one of the stars in the sport, to where he still has it, and then maybe that is the sign of, well, you still have it, but you don't want to wait for it to get so bad that you end up kind of, I don't want to say tarnishing what you've done, but you wait too long and you hang around too long and you start dropping L's against fighters that you really shouldn't be losing to. And I think Joe Pyfer is borderline a guy, in my opinion, that Adesanya shouldn't have lost to. Like a prime Izzy, I don't think he loses to Pyfer. Pyfer's very dangerous, and I feel like he's a guy that's been often overlooked, and I've been saying how dangerous he is. But I feel like Izzy, he could have won that fight, man. He could have won that fight. A guy that he borderline should not lose to. Losing to any of those other guys that I listed, I feel like that's where we would know, okay, Adesanya is definitely washed. So it's a question of, do we get to this point, or does Izzy just kind of retire now? I don't know, man. From what we've heard from him, sounds like he's still motivated and wants to get after it. Now, I do wonder, is it possible that Adesanya moves up to light heavyweight? We've seen that Paulo Costa and Robert Whittaker have. RDR just did. I know his teammate Navajo Sterling is there. Carlos Alberg is there. Just something that could be interesting, considering that Adesanya, I feel like, has added on some size throughout the years, to where when you move up, I know that there's some very dangerous guys that do move rather quick in the light heavyweight division, but if he's having trouble with some of the speed of the middleweights, we've seen guys when they struggle with speed, especially as they get older in their career, they move up to a heavier weight class. Might be kind of interesting. But if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a favor. Please give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss an upload. I would appreciate it. I'll see you next time.